Hey everyone, Ivy League Gaming here, and today we're playing Raid Shadow Legends, and we are doing a Hydra head boss series discussion talking about each head and what they do and how to combat them and which champions are best for combating them. So of course I'm going to talk about some of the main key ones like Shamel, Geomancer, and those are not necessarily the only answers, don't worry. And I'm gonna try to mention people, and just don't always hear the name and be like, oh, I don't have them. Think about their utility and what they're offering. Like, okay, Umbral block buffs. I don't have her. She's a void. I don't have good void epics. Maybe you have an Ugo. Maybe you have, oh wait, Deliana. At least she has some utility with block buffs. So there's options, guys. There are options, so... If only Deliana had freaking decreased accuracy instead of decreased resistance as a debuff. Oof. Anyway, let's get into the Head of Suffering. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like this head is the one I worry the least about. Which is funny because it's called the Head of Suffering. This is also the head with the highest HP. So let's actually talk about that first. So let's take a look at its stats. Head of Suffering. HP 4 million compared to 3, 1, 2, 2, 2, whatever. So you can see it does have a high stats here. Accuracy wise, let's see, it has low accuracy, so only need a little bit of resistance. All right, for its provoke. So not too bad there. But let's get to it. So, Head of Suffering attacks all enemies, places a weaken debuff for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be resisted. So right off the bat, weaken cannot be resisted. Will not place weaken on enemies with strengthen buffs. So that is something I don't even remember, to be honest. This head, I feel like for some reason is the one that I don't even think about because I think it's the least scary when it comes down to it, ironically, depending on how you look at its A2, which we'll talk about. So if you have a champion with strength and debuffs, like, well, our friend Lydia, right? Yay! And there's a lot of other champions now that have strength and debuffs, so you don't have to worry about the weaken, but you also can cleanse the weaken, so that's at least an option. In almost every rotation of Hydra, I feel like I have a cleanser in my main teams. It's such a needed skill for all the stuff that can happen, like the provokes, the weakens, the poisons. If you're not having high resistance, you're going to need a cleanser, or there's skills like this where you can't resist them, so you're going to need a cleanser. But let's talk, all right, decapitation effect. Places a shield on all enemy champions for 2 turns, equal to 30% of their max HP whenever this head is decapitated. So this head is actually kind of funny, right? It places a shield, that's helpful, right? But depending on your preparation, if you don't have high resistance, the Head of Mischief might steal that shield. So it might actually bite you in the butt and end up spreading the shield to everybody. So this is kind of a weird one for me. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it gives you a free shield. But then if you're not ready to resist the Head of Mischief stealing your shield, it's going to take that shield back and then spread it to the other heads. So, I don't know. That's a weird one. But hopefully you start working on your champions getting some resistance for these reasons, right? Alright, so let's go on to its next skill, Thirst of Pain. Places a 50%... Actually, hold on, let me leave this up so you guys can read as I go. Places a 50% ally protection buff on all heads except for this one for 2 turns. Then places a 30% reflect damage on this head for 2 turns. Also places provoke debuff for 1 turn on the enemy with the highest crit damage. So it tries to provoke your damage dealer, so it's forced to hit it and then likely die because he has reflect damage on. But that actually can come in handy, so I want to mention that first. Obviously, first off, first glance, you're like, oh, ally protection, you're going to do less damage to the other heads. So if you can, you want to have block buffs on all of the heads, so you don't have to worry about that, or you're going to want a buff stripper to take that off. Also, reflect damage, you're probably going to want to take that off as well. But there's one time where you actually want to leave that on. Especially if you have a reviver on your team, which you should, of some sort. So, you got a mark on you, right? You got the mark, you're about to get devoured. Intentionally hit the Head of Suffering and die. and then the mark will go to someone else, and your reviver can revive you, and you're good to go. This is really helpful when you're dealing with a team that only has one main damage dealer. Now we're talking like, let's say you have all these support champs and a Royal Guard, and a Husk, or oh wait, Shamel, and you definitely don't want him getting devoured, because if he gets devoured, then everyone's going to start getting feared when you hit the Head of Torment. Oh no. So what you do is you let that damage dealer nuke as hard as they can while the reflect damage buff is on the Head of Suffering, and you're good to go. You die, thus the mark goes off you, and your reviver revives you, and at least you didn't lose that damage dealer, because you don't want the damage dealers to get devoured. How else are you getting your champion back, right? HP burn is going to be your friend in those cases, poisons maybe even, and just general War Master procs, but you might not be able to. You might not be able to, so especially if you're dealing with the Head of Blight in there and you're getting all those weak hits, it's just not fun. So if you can prevent your main damage dealer from getting devoured, this is kind of a quirky, fun way to do it when the Head of Suffering is on your team. Or on their team. Against you. Not on your team. He's not on our team at all. Oh man. Alright, this is another thing too we have to be concerned with the Head of Suffering. So we have Pain Link. Attacks one enemy, places a Pain Link for 3 turns, and grants this head an extra turn. Alright, I had to pull up the description of Pain Link to make sure I get it right, and it's actually not obvious because it's not easy to find. Hell Hades, guys, we gotta get you guys to add that on your website under debuffs, but I did find it in a list of buffs and debuffs on the official raid plarium.com forums. So Pain Link creates a link between the Head of Suffering and the target champion. The target champion receives 15% of all damage that the Head of Suffering receives, though the Head of Suffering gets full damage from the incoming attack. So if it has Pain Link on if you have Pain Link on someone and you start attacking the Head of Suffering, you got to be careful when those max HP big ol' hits, because you're probably going to kill your own champions. So you do want to make sure you have a cleanser involved when the Head of Suffering is around, because you're going to want to make sure you take that off if you want to start attacking the Head of Suffering. Now, on the thought about damage, so this head is a great one to target with max HP champions because it has high max HP. This is also one of those cases where you can bring a single target max HP hitter involved and specifically target the Head of Suffering for some big damage when you don't have Pain Link on someone. So this is what I'm talking Septimus, I'm talking Little Miss Annie. That is really helpful. Although, yeah, Septimus is actually the strong affinity for this. So I remember early on, people were using Septimus for just the Head of Suffering alone because he did so much damage. And even Little Miss Annie, if you don't have Royal Guards or whatever built, you have her built, or you're trying to find a fun use for her. I remember seeing some videos very early from other content creators actually using some of those single target max HP champions because the Head of Suffering has such high HP that if you just focus that alone, you're going to do amazing damage. And you also don't have to worry about the damage mitigation from AoE attacks because it's a single target attack. So that's something to consider if you're like, oh, I don't have a bunch of Royal Guards built. I only have one Royal Guard. Oh, I don't have a Husk. Or like, it's okay. You can actually, if you got lucky and you do have a single target max HP champion, you can actually use them when the Head of Suffering is here. So that is something to consider. Also, there's something bad here. This is where it gets bad. But honestly, the accuracies needed for Hydra are not hard. It's only hard when you need accuracy and resistance and good speed and everything, right? That's where it gets hard. But the Head of Suffering does have a passive rate, increases the resist of all Hydra heads by 50. So that's something to keep in mind if you're on a rotation with the Head of Suffering, that what is shown for the other heads' resistances might not be correct because you got that passive from the Head of Suffering to worry about. So your stats are actually higher. So you actually need higher accuracy. So if you're in a battle and you're wondering, why is none of my stuff landing? I have enough accuracy. I know I do. It's normally fine. Take a quick second, think if the Head of Suffering is there, and that might be your issue because of this passive here. 50 resistance is a lot, so you're going to need to combat that with extra accuracy as well. Again, also takes less damage from poisons, HP burn, and all the max big smacks like Reflect Damage, Mastery, War Master, and Giant Slayer Masteries. Just like everyone else, but you can put poisons on this head, and it does do a little bit of damage. We also have the same immunities: immune to stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, block active skills, block passive skills, fear, true fear, and petrification debuffs. Also immune to HP exchange effects, HP balancing effects, cooldown increasing effects, max HP reduction effects, and turn meter reduction effects. Whew. So this head is not too bad because honestly, as long as you have a buff stripper of even just a single target to remove that reflect damage when you don't want it, if you have a cleanser to take off the provoke, or just let the provoke happen once, it's usually not a big deal. And the weaken isn't the worst. Weaken's not too bad, although weaken does affect, I think, poisons. So if you have the Head of Suffering and the Head of Blight, the poisons are going to do more damage to you, so you got to be a little bit careful there. But I feel like overall this head is the least scary. You just want to, and more than likely, if this head is involved, you already have some of those similar champions in to combat the other heads too. So if you want to decrease the duration of buffs or strip buffs because of the other heads, stuff the other heads do, well, there's multiple heads you need to do that for, right? So you probably have a Godseeker Aniri or Madame Ceres or someone to take off some buffs at least. There are a lot of champions that have those, like I said, on A1s even, that are not those amazing void epics or legendaries that we always talk about. So just take a look at your skills and think about each part of these bosses. Take a breath and see what happens. So I didn't even realize, I forgot this whole Teams of the Week. There's this also, if you're not sure who to use in Hydra, just take a look at what people are using, and you'll then take a look at their skills and understand why, right? So let's say you have this whole team, but you don't have Mother Sybil. Go look at Mother Sybil. Why is she good? Go figure that out of what you have to compare, right? Stuff like that, you know, it's just trying to be smart. Also, I want to point out something really cool. Seeing that this is the last head of this series, at least until they release some more heads, I also want to point out even more wonderfulness that is the Hell Hades website with the optimizer. So let me pull up really quick and I will show you something really cool. So the Hell Hades optimizer tool, Hell Hades site is a membership-based site, but there are free memberships. There are some extra perks to some of the paid memberships, which are honestly totally worth it. Plus, I think supporting the site in general is totally worth it. But let me log in and show you some fun stuff. All right, first, of course, you'll open the optimizer here, and then you'll upload to website. Boom, live refresh, it's connected. All right, actually, I'll just let that refresh with the one that's making sure we're actually connected. All right, so there's something called Team Optimizer. Now, I want to point this out. So let's say we're talking Hydra Rotation 2. I want to finally do Nightmare, god damn it. All right, and let's take a look at his Stages tool. For Nightmare, what do the heads have for HP? Or is that what it's? Defense, sorry, defense. 3,500, 500, 5,000, 35, 5, 39, 35, Okay, so we're close to 5. I'm just going to put 5,000. 5,000 defense. Suggest team. Ready for this, guys? Sort by boss damage. Battles from the last 7 days, maybe? Actually, you know what? There's multiple rotations because we're only talking about this one rotation now. So that's not too bad. And we want to exclude you want only your 6-star champions to be shown? Exclude locked champions. That's, exclude manual teams. So you only want to see what people have done on full auto. What? So this is actually something I need to be better about, guys. If you have the HH Gaming optimizer extractor kind of just lingering on your site, on your page, you're helping them to get the details for this, which is really good because if you're like me and you're using these tools, you might as well support and help provide them with data. It analyzes your playing and play stuff and throws it in here, right? That's so helpful for you helping other people. And if you're using the data, you should do it too. So look at this one, guys. Nightmare Hydra. 39 million damage. I haven't done that yet. And look what I'm not seeing. Shamel in this team. This might be something I have to try. So we've got Royal Guard, Husk, Duchess, Lydia, Geomancer, and Mother Sybil. I actually did start building Mother here. And I haven't finished her yet. So that's something I need to do. This is a free part of the thing, but what I do love is the full details are amazing, but I think that's part of the paid feature only, unfortunately, guys. But I'll show you what this has, just so you know. So this is so good. So not only can you see which characters and which teams from your champions are good for that rotation of Hydra, but you also can see what their stats are, what their masteries are, and what their sets of gear are. Like, what? This is so good. It's so freaking helpful. So this is something that I've got to remember. See, look at this. This is where the end game comes in, guys. 500 resistance, 469 resistance, 502 resistance. No resist on the Royal Guard. Interesting. Okay. No resistance on these guys, really. So this is not a full resist team. So for me to see a non-full resist team, that actually makes me excited. Because it goes away. Sorry, guys. It goes away. Let me go back. But yeah, to see that as an option is so awesome, because I'm super concerned with most of the people I'm hearing do crazy damage on Hydra. You know, it's because they have those full resist teams. So based on boss damage, I have some really great options here. This is something I've been doing. It looks like, so, does that mean she was the lead, or was she the lead? That's the one thing I can't tell is, like, does that mean that she was the leader instead of Geo, actually? That's interesting. To be fair, if you want to constantly be provoking the Head of Decay if it comes out, you might want that. But yeah, this is just such a good tool to be able to figure out what teams you should maybe try based on your own roster. I had to end the series with mentioning this because it helped me when I was struggling before I had really taken the time to try to understand each head. Suggest a team hard. Look at this nice, easy one, not easy, but 1 key damage. Brogni is amazing. Another one. I mentioned Helicat a lot, guys, in this series, but with the Head of Wrath especially. But Brogni's amazing for it too. You just got to make sure you have resistance on everyone with those shields. You don't want those. I don't want everything stolen. And at least they can't steal the fancy shield, right? At least they can't steal the fancy shield. But there's so much to try. There's so much to think about. And this is really helpful when you're still learning. And sometimes you just need to copy a build. I get it. I used to be that person. So hopefully all the stuff we talked about in this Hydra Head series was helpful. And hopefully you guys can utilize amazing tools like Hell Hades' website and his optimizer when dealing with these to get information and use the tools. Take advantage of it. They're there and they work really hard. Support them. I love it. They work so hard, and I can't imagine the community without Hell Hades' optimizer and his website, and without Deadwood Jedi's website and calculator, or without RSL helper. Like, I can't. All these amazing tools, guys, use them. Use them. But if you're not sure what I'm talking about, then you're missing out. If any of those things were not familiar, you're missing out. All right, guys, but I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you guys for watching this series. I will be sure to come back in when the new heads are released, and we will talk about those new heads and how to combat them, the best champions to use. But for now, I'll see you in the next video.